YouTube? It's Abysmal Bloom, and in today's video, I wanted to share with you guys my Purrelyghoul list that I took to the Remote Duel YCS. We weren't able to top, but it did a solid performance. We went 5-3-1 at the end of the tournament on day 1, and this is against meta relevant decks. We faced a bunch of azamina and fiendsmith variations, and there was, I think, maybe one Tenpai matchup I had, along with, I think one rogue matchup of, I think, Runic. 2 of my losses were from time, and 1 loss was from bricking on game 3. I'll just go over the deck profile and maybe a little bit about the idea behind why we're playing it in these ratios. Okay, so, starting off, this is a 60 card pile Purrelyghoul list. So, while that may seem kind of wild to think about, the way I've built this deck is we have about 20 cards for both engines, and then there's 20 cards for basically just non-engine. So with putting it in that way, you have a solid chance to see both engine and non-engine. And so yeah, it just works out really nicely because of that. Starting off, I'll go over the Purrely package. So the Purrely package is actually pretty standard for what you would see in a normal Purrely deck list. We have the 2 Purrelys and the 2 Purrelys, followed up with 3 copies of the Purrely field spell, the imperm Purrely, and then you max out on all the quick plays, and you play the 1 copy of the Yeep to round it off. So this is 21 cards, and it's kind of nice because every Purrely quick play can basically just get you 2 level 1 bodies. So that just is 1 card that is an extender for the most part. And even if you just open Purrely, that too can just get you to 2 bodies because you get the imperm Purrely, get a quick play, and voila, you're there again. So yeah, basically everything here is a starter to get your Mimighoul engine if you really need it. But you can also just use it to go into your Purrely plays as well. And yeah, 21 cards. From there, for the Mimighoul package, we were on the 1 Master, the 3 Dragon, 2 Archfiend, 1 Slime, 1 Fairy. The monster count for the Mimighoul stuff can feel kind of low, but you have to remember any Purrely quick play is basically an extender for the Mimighouls. So it's kind of nice just being able to have a bunch of extenders, and yeah, it's just works out. That helps you play through hand traps a lot better. And along with that, I just want to point out Slime and Fairy, they're basically monsters that can summon themselves if you have the right conditions for free. So Fairy, as long as you have a Mimighoul monster, just summons itself out, and Slime, as long as your opponent has more monsters than you do, summons itself out. And that actually came up. And yeah, so Dragon is your normal summon for the Mimighoul engine if you really need it, but you normally want to bring them out with the Mimighoul Maker. But we'll get to that in a moment. We have the 3 Mimighoul field spell. This is again basically a starter because it can search you your dragon and gets you your Mimighoul lock. And then to max out on the field spells, we play the 1 terraforming. And I also included said rotation because we do have both the Purrely field spell and the Mimighoul. But wild enough, this actually was relevant for other stuff as well. Defensive, you give your opponent a card and it plays through Ash and Droll nicely. And then along with that, because you've given your opponent a card, they can't use stuff like imperm. So really good card. And then offensively, I actually use this against the Runic matchup. Well, I put it in the deck for the Runic matchup because you technically just shut down their field spell, and they can't just use a level 2 monster to sort of protect their field spell. So kind of nice. It's just good to deal with field spells. From there, you have the 3 Maker. This is your ideal play to do your Mimighoul stuff, and you can just search it off of Giant Mimighoul if you really need to. And then lastly, we have the 2 Rune, and this with like the Mimighoul Master just does a lot of interaction for the opponent's board because You give the opponent a Mimighoul Dragon and you Book of the Moon their monster. After some point later in the plays, you can use your master to flip the dragon and board wipe them. And then you're usually bringing master off of throne, so you still have something like a non-targeting bounce. They technically still have a face down monster, so they cannot normal summon with the Mimighoul field spell or attack with their special summon monsters. So that stuff itself just does so much interaction against your opponent's stuff. So that is the Mimighoul package. This is actually 18 cards. So our 40th card is actually the Angel Statue Azarun, which just means any two bodies that are just randomly lying around just becomes free additional 2 interruptions. The next 20 cards are basically all non-engine in some form. So starting off, we have the Call by the Grave and the 2 talents. So if our opponent hand traps us, we have these guys to sort of interact or fight back with the opponent's hand resources with these guys. And if nothing else, Mimighouls also just trigger talents for anything you need, either to hand drip, draw 2, or just steal an opponent's monster. From there, we have Triple Shifter. If you see it, it just shuts down your opponent's deck, and it's basically as if you're going first. You have the Bestial Magnamut, which, for the most part, I actually just use it as a way to just banish Shifter and search your engine, because it can get you to Mimighoul Dragon. It can also just be a solid interaction against stuff like Fiendsmith as well. So nice. From there, we have the 3 Ash Blossom, 2 Ghost Ogre, 3 Droll, 2 Veiler, and 3 imperms. There's not much reason for the ratios of 3-2. I guess the biggest thing is I was already on 3 imperms, so I figured 2 Veiler was enough. And Ghost Ogre, I don't know, I just want to see more than that. It's just whatever mix of hand traps you want versus the meta. But yeah, that is the non-engine. For the extra deck, we were on 2x Purrely Noir, then 1 copy of each of the rank 2s, and it's kind of nice because giving your opponent a Mimighoul monster kind of helps these guys do so much more for the Purrely engine. You can use Plump, suck up a Pretty Memory, and that automatically just lets you get to 5 materials if you suck up the Mimighoul monster you gave the opponent going first. Beauty, when you attach a quick play, lets you flip the Mimighoul monster you gave the opponent. Happiness is a lot better at OTKing now because you've given your opponent a monster. And then Noir just does Noir, so there's that. We have the Typhon. This guy, in theory, is supposed to be better going second because we have Anima, SP, and then potentially into Typhon. But I don't think I ever actually made him in the tournament, so I don't know. Might cut this guy from the list. We have the Zeus package, so Zeus, Downward, Nightingale. And Nightingale is just good against Tenpai. I actually survived a turn, and then I chose to just hold on to the Nightingale for a second turn to survive 2 turns against Tenpai. So that's kind of wild. And then, yeah, for the Mimighoul stuff, we have the Giant Mimighoul and the Mimighoul Throne. Giant is generic, and it gets you into your Mimighoul engine. Throne is specifically only Mimighoul monsters, so that can kind of suck sometimes. But this guy, for the most part, you're going to get to him usually, if your opponent has no interaction at all. From there, we have the Silhouette Rabbit, SP Little Knight, and the Anima. Lastly, for the side deck, we would sometimes take out a little bit of the Mimighoul engine or side out some non-engine that weren't particularly useful against matchups. But what we had was Retaliating Sea. This was surprisingly good against, well, we already know Azamina, but this actually hits the Chimera stuff as well pretty nicely because you just use it on their Chimera Fusion, gets rid of the actual spell as well as the materials used, and anything they send to the graveyard also just gets banished, so really good against that. We have the D-Fissure to kind of just hit the graveyards again when we go first. Cosmic Cyclones in general are good for back row as well as just field spells. We have the Thrust package in the side, and I'm basically using this as a way to search a going first card for the most part. But we have a Harpies Feather Duster, so I actually just use this specifically to search Duster going second if I need it. But yeah, along with the Duster, we have the D Barrier, Different Dimension Ground, and Similar Archfiend as our targets for when we go first. And yeah, Thrust, you're almost always going to be able to use that because you have the Mimighoul stuff, and if your opponent tracks, it's just there. So yeah, D Barrier in general just shuts down so many decks. Different Dimension Ground is for those graveyard decks. And then we got Similar Archfiends for Link decks in particular that sort of play through DDG. So yeah, this is our non-engine, well, side deck. And funny enough, everything included main deck and side deck, we have something like 14 cards that just straight up hit the graveyard. So the game plan basically is to be able to set up value of maybe a Purrely Xyz monster, some Mimighoul stuff, and you have some way to basically just shut down your opponent's graveyard, which for the most part is all you really need to win most matches as of right now. So yeah, that is the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video. Alright then, bye.